It was the longest war in American history, the first ever televised, a war that divided a generation. You may think you've seen and read everything about Vietnam, but now you'll hear the untold story.
It may be the only war where we were fighting and concurrently doing humanitarian things. In fact, I don't think there was any combat unit over there, in my experience, that wasn't also doing humanitarian things.
Legendary dust-off helicopter pilot, Major General Patrick Brady, was just one of tens of thousands of American soldiers whose mission was saving lives in Vietnam. But not only American lives. Of the nearly 1 million wounded airlifted by U.S. military medical units, nearly half were Vietnamese, soldiers and civilians, including enemy Viet Cong and North Vietnamese communist soldiers.
We made no distinction in how we cared for any patient. They were cared for and treated according to the severity of their wounds. So if you had a POW, a VC, an NVA, enemy soldier, who was more seriously wounded and required more immediate attention than a lesser wounded American soldier, he got it.
But that is only one of many untold stories which dispel the myths of Vietnam. Like General Brady himself, nearly all the 240 men to earn the military's highest decoration for valor in Vietnam, the Medal of Honor, were so recognized for saving the lives of others, often at the expense of their own. One of those Medal of Honor Vietnam veterans is even being considered for sainthood. Marine Father Vincent Capodanno, a naval chaplain, was killed in action in 1967 while attending to wounded and dying Marines. He may be the first American soldier in history to be canonized to sainthood by the Vatican.
So I would say there's probably not been one soldier who served in Vietnam who was not in one way or another involved in something humanitarian. Whether it was building a hospital, building a road, the Special Forces built hundreds of miles of roads and dug wells, orphanages, hospitals, agriculture, you name it. The American soldier, probably unparalleled in any war, the humanitarian effort that he provided for those poor people while he was in Vietnam.
Today, thousands of those same American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are continuing the humanitarian missions. They began in uniform nearly 4 decades ago.
This is what it's all about. This is what the whole trip is all about.
Each year, Vietnam veterans like Frank Mahoney, Kathy Fennell, Ed Frank, and Howard Golden travel back to Vietnam to deliver much-needed equipment and supplies. They also work in clinics, hospitals, and orphanages built by Americans to care for Vietnam's poor and dispossessed.
We all took home baggage from Vietnam, but for this particular group, and people and many, many different veterans groups work in Vietnam, I think there's a peace that comes with this.
Just to take so little.
Now, in this revealing new documentary film, the truth about Vietnam and those who served there will finally be told, a history that continues to be written by American men and women today.
Local citizens in South Vietnam would rather have lived with no North Vietnamese and no Americans. But the reality was, the Americans were there to help them. They knew that we were there to help them. The Viet Cong were there to intimidate, and the citizens were very afraid.
Like other documentary films produced by the Pennsylvania Veterans Museum, On Freedom's Wings, Bound for Glory, and In the Company of Heroes, Vietnam, the Untold Story, will preserve the rich military heritage that belongs to the children of the Commonwealth. This inspirational story of compassion in war and peace is part of the legacy veterans of all eras have left succeeding generations, one that should be taught in classrooms.